New this morning, a top health panel is finalizing some recommendations urging doctors to screen for anxiety. The patients are being asked to focus on adults under the age of 65. It is the first time the federal panel has made this recommendation as the pandemic fueled what we saw as a spike in mental health issues among Americans of all age groups, but specifically those under 65. Here to talk more about this is Dr. Robi Ludwig. She is a psychotherapist and host of Talking Live and the podcast Bite Size with Dr. Robi Ludwig. Doctor, great to see you as always. This is not surprising that so many people are dealing with anxiety, but why now are we hearing about this proposal from this panel to address it?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, during the pandemic, people were very vocal about the mental health struggles they were experiencing. They were isolated. They were more in touch with what was going on in their own minds, in their own bodies. And it's become more acceptable to share mental health struggles without feeling crazy or negatively self-labeling ourselves, which is really important, and education in terms of identifying what anxiety feels like. I've noticed in my private practice, initially when I started, the presenting mood was depression, and that was the primary issue. And over the years, anxiety has definitely increased.
You know, I was wondering, though, now that things have seemingly gotten back to normal, right? A lot of people are back in the office, our kids are back at school. Summer felt pretty normal. We got to shed the masks. Did that alleviate any of the anxiety issues that people are facing, or was it all sort of pent up and we're going to be dealing with it for years?
Well, the funny thing with anxiety is that we can be anxious about anything. So for some, it's about re-entering into the workplace, re-entering into schools, socializing again. That also can create new anxieties about how do you function again? It's almost like relearning some skills that atrophied during the pandemic. And anxiety is something that's really interesting. It's catastrophizing, thinking about the worst case scenario. So when you think about anxiety from that perspective, anyone can be anxious about anything, and it doesn't have to do with whether things seem more normal or not. We can still feel increasingly anxious.
So anxiety is a lot different than stress, right? We all have a certain level of stress in our lives, but anxiety is something that rises to the point where it starts to interfere with your ability to do your daily things. Is that how you would recognize that maybe it's something that you need to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, worrying and stress is usually very specific and it's based in reality. And when we think about anxiety, it's more of a global concern that our life is in danger. It almost feels like we're not settled. There's increased sometimes heart rate. There's going to the worst case scenario very quickly, an inability to calm down or to feel comfortable in one's own skin. And in some cases, this causes physical problems, like heart conditions or self-medicating and drug abuse or alcohol abuse. So it's important to be aware of your body and to acknowledge when you're not feeling comfortable. If you feel that something's off, start to ask yourself questions. Am I going to the worst case scenario? Am I unable to get through the activities of my day? Is it paralyzing me in some way? And sometimes there are certain physical symptoms like headaches and certain aches and pains that also can mask anxiety.
Yeah, it can translate into a lot of different things and look a lot of different ways. I know we all put on this, tough body armor, right? I can get through it. We try to understand what we're feeling and work through it without any help, but that's not always the best thing. Real quickly before I let you go, Dr. Ludwig, any coping mechanisms that people can try at home if they're watching right now and they're thinking, you talked about a lot of things that I'm experiencing, what can I do?
The best antidote to anxiety is taking action. When we're anxious, we feel really out of control and that the world has control over us. So take one step to make a change and to feel like you have control over something in your world, and then share your emotional experience with someone you trust. I think those are two good strategies that can help you take the next step forward.
I love that. And know that you're not alone, right? There are a lot of people that are going through this of all age groups. All right, Dr. Ludwig, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now to some